So now it's time to look at the TopBoost card. The owner thinks this is an original OG add-on from the factory. It's got the original looking knobs here, and then this looks good. Now it's interesting, this is just a piece of metal basically that's bent into place, very crude. And yeah, I'm not sure who's to say. I tend to believe him, and this looks old. It is kind of interesting. The tube is coming out on this side. A few I've seen have come out the other side. Going over this way, I'm not really sure. It makes more sense, I guess, going this way, though it's a little bit busier because it's not in the way of the trim pot. But let's take this 12X7 out. I don't think it's labeled as anything. It's not. And yeah, we got some old pots. So it's a 1 meg logarithmic pot right here for the base. And then looks like a 1 meg RS pot here. It's probably a old replacement. This one might be original. This does look old for sure. And yeah, we got to look at it a bit closer because it's got a bunch of changed parts and the performance / behavior is not correct. Now we do see some evidence of that one tech that did other work in the amp. You can see the curly leads on this resistor. So funny. So yeah, we want to make sure this was done right because it definitely doesn't sound like it was done right. So it might be something simple, or it might need to be just rebuilt entirely. It's a bit hard to work on these on the camera, so I might just have to cut ahead. But anyways, you guys can get a decent look at it there. Okay, discoveries. I was correct. My ears were correct here. So these two pots are wired the opposite of what they should be. So the bass pot here is actually wired as the treble pot. Again, labeled bass here. So they're just a flip of each other. So the bass pot's wired as a treble, and the treble's wired as a bass. Outside of that, some other little goofy things. I can't tell what this is right here, this Erie. I'm not sure if it's a resistor or a cap. The value on it's on the bottom side. I'm assuming this will be the 56K in the schematic. I'll show you guys in a second, but I can't fully confirm that, so I can't see it. And yeah, so it's just done a bit goofy. Now, one kind of interesting thing to note is this pot has a GK, if you can see that. Date code on it, so that puts it at, I think it was July of 63. I know K is 63, so this amp being a 61 or thereabouts, kind of interesting. So presumably brought back into the factory for the TopBoost. And then again, personally, all of the TopBoosts I've seen have been on this side, not that side. So just kind of unique and interesting. These were in a lot of ways like homebrew amps. They're kind of crazy in comparison to Fenders of the same time, or even Marshalls. But anyways, so what are we going to do about this? I'll show you the schematic just so you can quickly run through it because it's a little confusing in case you're curious. So we've got the 220K here, and that's normally going to the wiper of the volume pot for the Brilliant channel. You're basically just lifting that out and putting all of this in between those two positions of the circuit. So you're kind of cutting in, splicing in, and adding the additional gain stage in the tone stack here. So that's what's happening to the TopBoost. So we can see we do add in 100 picofarad bright cap there, which is there, you just can't see it. And then we've got the shielded wire going to the grid. Pin 3 is a cathode. We've got the 25 microfarad cathode bypass cap and the 1.5K resistor, which is right here, if you can see that. So those are both fine. Pin 1 and pin 6 are the plates. Those are joined with a 100K resistor. You can see that right there. And then the other end of that resistor goes to the filter caps. You can see this blue wire is connected on the other end. That goes to the board. And then we've got this right here. And on one side, you got the 10K, which is right there. The other side, you've got the 30 microfarad cap, which we swapped in. So that all looks fine. Moving back over here to pin 8. So that's the other cathode. This 56K, again, I can't see if this is 56K or if it's a resistor or a cap or what. I'm assuming that is, but I can't tell. So that should be there. And then following the orange wire, that's the cathode pin 8. And so that goes over here to this joining. And so we've got this 50 picofarad, looks like an old Lemco cap. And you'll see the 50 picofarad cap should be going to the treble pot. But again, the top one is the bass pot. So it's going to the Lemco, 50 picofarad, that's going here to the bass pot. And then the other end of that is going to be connected to this 100K resistor, which we can see right here. And the 100K resistor then is connected kind of wise off to the 2.022 microfarad caps, which are right here, just as I described. And you'll see that one of them goes to the wiper of the bass pot. In this case, it's the treble pot. And then the other one goes to the side lug here. So that's all correct if it was on the right pot, but it's not. And then the wiper also of the bass pot goes to a 10K, which you can see just right there. And then all that's grounded, and there's bus wire. You can see that bus wire, so everything is grounded here, not to this ground lug, but grounded there, so that it all runs through this black wire grounding to the preamp ground to reduce ground loops. And then obviously the pink wires are the heaters here, which, none of this is quote unquote the best, but again, with the spirit of this repair, it's not restoring and making perfect, it's making functional. So we're not going to completely rebuild this top to bottom. That would be very time consuming. We are going to swap these so that the bass pot acts like the bass pot, and then we will kind of clean up whatever we have to here, but it does function, just not as originally intended. So let's get to it. It's going to be a lot of little tedious work, but this will be great when it's done. All right, I think that looks pretty good. I just want to make sure I did this right in my head here. So pin 1 was unchanged, pin 6 was unchanged, pin 7 was unchanged, pin 2 is a grid. That's just disconnecting this right here, so that'll be reconnected there. Pin 3 is the cathode, V1A cathode, that's untouched. And then 4 and 5 are heaters. Those are joined together. 5 was disconnected. That's these right here. I'm going to redo them since they're kind of sloppy. And then jumping ahead, pin 8, that's the other grid, or sorry, the other cathode, excuse me, not the other grid. And so this was a 56K and measures right on the dot. So that was retained, and that's going to the ground bus. And then we have the cathode also going over here. And I've got the 100K and the 50 picofarad wiring off to those two. And then off the other end of the 100K resistor is again wiring off to the 0.022s, and those are going to each of the two pots here, to the wiper of the bass pot, and over here on the treble pot. The treble and bass pot are joined between these two lugs, and the 50 picofarad goes to the other side. This wiper will be this shielded cable right here, which is just rejoining the 220K over there. So it'll be the output, so to speak. And then we've got a 10K joining between the wiper and grounding this lug, which is kind of a quirky historical thing from the JMI era. And then I've got silicone underneath the caps, hold them in place a bit more, as well as silicone under the 50 picofarad, which is still wet, which is why I can move it, but that'll be super solid when it's done. So before I reinstall any of this stuff, I just want to make sure with the mock fit that these aren't going to be touching anything before I fully sign off on it. So you can kind of see there's plenty of clearance on everything. Nothing's really actually close. I don't know how well you can tell that, but plenty of clearance, no problems whatsoever there. So that's good to go. Now we can just go ahead and tackle those heaters and get these reconnected. But I'm going to just kind of leave this off to the side a little bit because these heaters are kind of a mess, and I actually want to disconnect these two connections to the ground so that we can elevate the heater supply over here to the cathode, which will also help reduce noise while I'm in this area. Usually it's hard to get to. So because it's available right now, might as well do that mod, which is kind of just a no-brainer once you're in here. So let's go ahead and remove these. Perfect, that looks good. So we can go ahead and reconfigure the heater supply for the TopBoost card. We'll just connect it right there, no biggie. Real close to being done now, guys. Off camera, I went ahead, cleaned all of the input jacks, all of the pots, all of the tube sockets, and then I also replaced, or actually added, a chassis screw here, or a chassis bolt. Basically, you have one here, one here. Those join the aluminum chassis to the steel bottom chassis. and there's one in the middle here as well under the TopBoost card, and that was missing actually. So I installed a new one there just to keep it nice and solid, which is great. And really the only thing that's left here is I'm just going to add some solder to some of the joints that are missing solder. I'm not sure how well you guys can see, but there's ones here where you can see right through. I can poke right through the tag board there because they barely added any solder. And yeah, just lots of that. So we'll go ahead and just kind of flow whatever looks suspect at first glance, and then that's about it. Now I did test the amp through my 64 Super Twin cabinet with the Alnico Silvers. This thing sounds insane. It sounds so good. I'm really, really pleased with how it came out, and I can't wait for the owner to hear it. So yeah, everything's looking good. We'll probably run it through the aux box and do a quick demo as well tonight, but I'll do that after I reflow some of the solder just to make sure everything is solid before we finalize it all and button it up. But very happy with how it came out. One thing I did want to note in cleaning the tube sockets is I noticed that one of the power tubes, one of the four, is actually a different make, EL84. So none of the branding is left on them, and they all look pretty tired, but it is, you can see the construction is different on it. Now the hard part about an amp like this, it's cathode bias with one cathode resistor, is to check the bias for individual tubes. You can't really do that. They're all tied together. So if you have one tube that's, fairly weak and another tube that's fairly strong, you can't really tell that without being able to take the tubes out and test them individually with a tube tester, which is just not something I have. So I will be recommending to the owner he gets a new quad just for longevity's sake, but that's not something you need me for because it is cathode biased. So, and I know this value, the 68 ohm resistor, will be plenty fine for any replacement EL84s. Perfect. So let's go ahead and get to it. More time lapses for you guys, and then we'll probably come back with some audio samples. All right, I want to call it perfect. I mean, every tag joint, it looks like just about has been messed with on one side at least. So yeah, it's a bit tricky. And also the vintage ones, the original ones, they have this kind of gray paint to them, which you can kind of see all over here. You can even see it splattered on the tag board here. I'm pretty sure that's original on my AC30. The later ones, around 64 plus, through the Westrex factory, they all use red paint. I've never seen this gray before. I'm sure that's typical for early 60s, like a 61 like this is. So yeah, otherwise, I mean, the amp functions perfectly as far as I can tell. So I think it's good to go. I'm going to go ahead and take some final voltage measurements on a few things, just notate it for future reference. And then, yeah, we'll do some quick play samples. Right about there's the edge of clipping. Somewhere around 16 volts AC. So 16.2 times 16.2. That gives us that divided by 8. So putting out about 32 watts. So right on the money of what you'd expect for something like this. Now I'm curious what is going on with this jack here. So I'm going to throw the scope on it and just see what that shows. Hooked up to the output transformer, extra winding, you can see there. And shows 4.2 volts AC as I'm pumping signal into it. Look at the scope. That's what the scope sees based off of the jack there. So not sure what's going on and what that's there for. Very odd. With that, I think we'll go ahead and just grab a guitar, do a couple quick strums. I don't have the inspiration, to be honest, to play anything really special here to do the amp justice. This weekend, I intend on bringing this amp back to the owner and at a gear hang with some friends, and we can maybe get some recordings there through a different cabinet since the speakers are toast in this thing. So maybe we'll have something better there, but I'm just going to show it works as a proof of concept here through the aux box. Well, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I thought it sounded great. You know, it's always tough a little dry without an amp that has spring reverb or something. But yeah, just great sounding Vox. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I played it through my cab like I mentioned before. Sounded awesome there too. This is a great example. Sounds really, really good. Looking at the amp some more, I'm going to touch up some of these solder joints on the tube sockets. Those look a little tired in places. Look like they could use some added solder. But otherwise, I'm calling it good. Everything else looks really good on it. Now, the last thing I want to do real quick is just, I don't know what to do with this, to be honest. It's hard to make a decision because I don't know what it is. I don't know what the purpose is. So I'm just going to take some more measurements with it, be a little bit more intentional with my measurements here, and maybe I can do a little bit of research. So hopefully I'll have an answer for you guys after I do this. Before I go ahead and put the chassis back in the cabinet, I just wanted to go ahead and show the work because not all of it I don't think got shown. Specifically things like the rectifier, safety diodes that were added, got the screen and grid stop resistors that were added. We got the artificial center tap, which was added right there. We got the replacement cap tucked in there. Got the bias resistor and bias cap. And then I decided I'm just going to leave this. I can't figure out what it does. I don't really understand the purpose. There is AC voltage there, more than I would expect, but the behavior is really weird on the scope. So there's already a hole cut open in the slider board for it. So I'll just leave it there. It's not hurting anything, and I don't want to hurt something trying to actually remove it. So I think it's safer to just leave it. And then obviously that's just for testing purposes. Didn't touch any of this stuff other than the cathode bypass cap right here. And just adding some more solder. You can see some shiny joints because those all need a little bit more solder. Nothing really to note anywhere in this area. All standard stuff, factory or factory spec replacements. The TopBoost card, you guys already saw. Yeah, that's working great, which is good. Over here, there's one interesting thing I noticed, and that is this. So it's got a bunch of replacement caps in the amp, and that Philip Mustard right there is, I believe, an example of that. That's a 10,000 picofarad or a 0.01 microfarad cap there, or 10 nanofarad. And that normally for the Brilliant channel is a 500 picofarad. So it is a significantly larger cap. And so I think that's plays a big role in this amp having just kind of a bigger, warmer sound versus my personal AC30 Super Twin, as well as the other AC30 TopBoost that you guys may have already seen or not. I don't know how this is going to work in the edit, but came in with this amp, the integrated TopBoost. So yeah, I think that's kind of an interesting little feature there. Now on my personal AC30, I added a 0.022, so a 22,000 picofarad cap in parallel with the original 500 picofarad, just to keep the original there in case I ever want to revert back. So I've got a bigger value in mind, but another thing I did not know about is, let me see if I can brighten this up a little bit. There's the cathode bypass cap, the 25 microfarad right there. So this tube, where my finger's pointing, this is one half is for the Brilliant channel, one half is for the normal channel. So the first half of the, so I think that's considered V1, even though it's all the way 5 preamp tubes in. So V1A is for the Brilliant channel. And on my AC30 Super Twin, which is a treble model, it actually has a split cathode so that the Brilliant channel is getting a 0.1 microfarad cathode bypass cap, and then the normal channel is getting a 25 microfarad. So the higher the value, you're going to get more gain, and really more low end. It's going to be less biased towards the top in upper mids. So that's kind of an interesting difference here is, I guess, all the other models, they have a bridged cathode so that they share the same 25 microfarad cathode bypass cap. So just kind of an interesting difference with mine and his, in that this has a larger a cathode bypass cap, but then a smaller cap here, whereas mine is the opposite. So anyways, more for future reference for myself as I go back into tweaking my personal AC30. But yeah, otherwise we didn't mess with any of the previous work. That worked. And then obviously we've got the replacement filter caps here, which are super solid. Those aren't going anywhere. And then the 3-prong, and then obviously that is functioning correctly now. So yeah, this thing is just a fabulous, fabulous amp. Sounds so good. And I'm really excited for the owner to check it out tomorrow. So let's go ahead and get it back in the chassis. Or back in the cabinet, goodness.